So far in our videos on using Excel to provide functional pages for our WordPress site, we've accessed them by fixed links in the first video and drop-down menu boxes in the second. Now this may be okay for 20 or so separate pages, but it's too unwieldy for any more. Plus sometimes the user wants groups of results to look through, not just single pages. In other words, we need a search system. By the way, you'll probably need to see the second video to understand this video fully. What we could do is develop a simple keyword finder to match up search terms against all the text in our files. But that has limitations. For a start, we could be looking through an awful lot of data. And secondly, not all valid search terms might exist in that text. For example, if we use the university data in the Excel worksheet sheet 2 we used in the last video, the University of Sheffield finds a match, but Sheffield University doesn't, which is a shame because according to Google, that term has far more searches. Well, actually the answer is pretty simple. Go back to Excel and add a whole load more keywords to our table. How about these for a start? If you look at the combinations of keywords, there's just about every option of university choice. Obviously we can go further depending on who we're aiming at. There's no limit really: history, buildings, academics, alumni and so on. So we'll just add a whole list of keywords to our spreadsheet and then put all the keywords of all our universities in one text file to be searched through separately. Okay, so let's get Excel to create our keyword file. Well, the simplest type of database is the CSV file, which is a text file where the data elements are separated by commas like this. And although Excel can export data as a CSV file, we're going to make our own. It's more flexible. What we'll do is set up another simple Visual Basic routine to make up a keyword file of our choice. So install Excel's Video Basic Editor again and insert another blank module in your workbook. As before, we'll keep the coding as simple as possible. We've set up a subroutine header and called it CSV tag file. We've declared our variables. We've got our integer variable n, which we're going to use in our for next loop again. And we have two string variables to pick up our university name and the list of keywords from our Excel table. And three more string variables for the output text, the file name and the file path. So we'll select worksheet sheet 2. And since we have data for only 5 universities, we'll set up our for next loop for just 5 iterations. Now we'll go down the loop, picking the data from the cells in the first row and then passing them to our variables. The difference this time is that we'll keep on adding the values to our string variable output text until it contains all our data. And notice a couple of things. We're joining all the strings together with the ampersands again, but we're keeping the two data elements separate by putting a comma between them. Also, to keep the rows apart in our text file, we add a special character 10 to signify the end of a line. Now we've reached the end of the loop for the first time, we'll drop down a row and do the same thing again until we reach the end of our table. Next we save our text file by setting up a file path, opening a channel, outputting our text file, and finally closing the channel. And that's it. Run the routine and all our keywords are filed away. We can now upload our file to PHP folder in the WP content directory on our WordPress server, just like we did before. Unfortunately now we must get involved with a bit of PHP programming because we need to be able to search through the file we've just created. We'll add a new WordPress page to our site. We've entitled our page Search CSV File, which with permalinks enabled creates a page called Search-CSV-File. And again, we'll keep all the action on the same page. In text mode, we'll write out a basic HTML form which has a text box for the user to add their search query and a submit button. This is fairly straightforward. The first line sets up the form and shows the query will be sent to the page on our server using the post rather than the get method we used before. We'll explain why in a minute. The text entry will travel under the variable name search. From now on it's going to get pretty murky, but if you've got this far, you've got nothing to fear. By the way, if you are on WordPress and haven't already done so, you'll need to go to Plugins and install PHP Insert to get WordPress to accept your PHP code. So let's go through this slowly. Enter 2 insert PHP tags at the beginning and end of your code, and look out for square brackets and for the // in the second tag. From now on you're entering PHP territory. Be careful not to miss out apostrophes and semicolons. The first line shows a string called search string receiving the value from the variable search, which was sent from our form. As we said before, we're using the post method to send our text. Without going into details, post is generally more secure than get. And we've also got a function called HTML special characters wrapped around our post method. Anytime you open up your website to others through text boxes, you are at risk of malicious behavior. It's a bit like fitting a new front door without locks and bolts. This function basically disables anything sent from the text box which it considers harmful. Our second line is a variable called count, which allows us to check how many, if any, search matches we get. The next line is a PHP conditional. Basically it says if search string is empty, that is someone has clicked on the search button with nothing in the text box, we'll just add null to it. From now on you'll find much of our coding is spent trying to cope with users' frailties. Notice the construction. It's if followed by a pair of ordinary brackets in which there is a condition. In this case, if search string is empty, then jump into the code between the 2 curly brackets. If search string isn't empty, just carry on down the rest of the code. The next line is the print function outputting some text. Notice the little bits of HTML we've added and the full stops acting as string connectors. Then we set up open file and pass to it our open file path. Notice the function fopen which does this and the lowercase letter r which means read only. And now we come to another type of loop. The while loop goes round its code until a condition is no longer met. The basic construction is just like the if conditional above. In this case the function fgets takes one line of text out of our file and passes it to a variable called row. And the condition will fail when fgets runs out of text because it's got to the end of the file. Okay, so let's look inside the loop. Now we'll see if the search text sent to our page matches any text in row. The function stripos will put what position in the line it finds the match into a variable string position. If it doesn't find anything, string position will register false. By the way, stripos is case insensitive, which makes it simpler to match search strings with content. Which brings us to another if conditional. If string position does not equal false, that strange combination of an exclamation mark and 2 equals signs means does not equal, then it must have found a match in our file. So now we'll gather what we need to form a link to the university page. If you remember, the data elements in our Excel file were joined together by commas. Explode splits apart those elements according to the commas into an array called array parts for us. The first part of the array now holds our university name, which we need for our link, and the second contains all our keywords. Remember that number series in computing nearly always start with 0 and not with 1, so our university name is in array part 0, and all our keywords are in array parts 1. And notice the square brackets as well. We'll increase count by 1 to show that we found a match, and then go on to build our link to the WordPress page PHP text files we created in the last video. Now, this is quite an important step. We're now combining 2 PHP server pages, the one we're on and our link to the next one. Notice how the link is constructed with a mixture of ordinary HTML and the PHP variable ArrayPart0 providing the university name. Notice also the query after the page name. The university name is going to be attached to the variable uni, which our next page will need. We've ended our if conditional, and now we go around the loop again to see if we can find any more results. If when the loop's ended count is still 0, we'll notify the user that nothing was found. Finally, we can close the file, and that's it. Now if we go into the WordPress view page mode, we can see our handiwork. At first the page will show null results because we haven't entered any text yet. Let's enter Sheffield and click search, and if all's well we should see 2 records. And already our relatively small pieces of code are starting to produce sophisticated results, but the output to our user is pretty meagre and unhelpful. Clearly Google has nothing to fear from any of this. And so in the next video we'll jazz up our output so that our user gets a better idea of which results match their search. In the meantime, thanks for watching.